Today I'm talking to my sister-in-law, Jade Huynh, a music lover like me. She's an artist and a creative person working in two different mediums, origami and pastry. As an origami artist, she built a 400 square foot room of all handmade origami flowers at the Insomniac Beyond Wonderland SoCal Music Festival. She was invited to the Adobe Max conference to lead an origami workshop in the Creative Park. She was also a contestant on season 2 of HBO's Craftopia. She was chosen to lead a workshop teaching origami to kids at an event by the LA Kings and LA Galaxy for AAPI month. She was a guest artist at Art Basel in Miami Beach, and she sells commissioned origami for weddings, businesses, and private collection. As a pastry chef, Jade attended Le Cordon Bleu College in Minnesota. She worked with the best chefs in Minneapolis, at La Belle Vie under Tim McKee, at the Dakota Jazz Club with Jack Riebel, at Heyday with Jim Christensen. She worked with renowned pastry chef Diane Mua at La Belle Vie and Heyday, and she worked at Patisserie 46 with John Krause. In this chat, we talk about music, origami, pastry, how it all started for Jade, how she got to where she is today, and what she's working on now. I hope you enjoy this conversation with Jade Huynh. I know some of your story, but this is my chance to find out more of your story. But first, the icebreaker: cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Why?
Oh my gosh. They're gonna rescue us from a fire.
So, what was your favorite concert that you've ever attended?
Well, this is a unique story. My favorite, I guess, concert would be my favorite music festival that I've ever attended, which also fits in as my first music festival. It's called Beyond Wonderland.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
hosted
I've heard
it's
of it.
hosted by Insomniac. That I went to the one in SoCal, so it was in San Bernardino.
Was there a particular artist that stood out?
One of my favorite DJs was performing. Zomboy.
Then, what genre of music do you listen to most?
I do listen to a lot of EDM. Anything with bass and a beat.
What is the most embarrassing song or artist on your playlist? I've got a couple Backstreet Boys songs on mine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
That's where we're going.
I've got a Bieber song. I've got some Shawn Mendes.
Like in the Asian demographic, maybe Vietnamese people in particular. Listen to a lot of Bonnie M. I don't know about others, but very nostalgic. It brings me back to like the first house I grew up in kind of feels. So if I'm having like kind of like um, an off day, I'll put in, yeah, I'll play some disco and just mentally boogie, I guess.
Bonnie M. It sounds like you would choose because it can, well, it's nostalgic, reminds you of your childhood. And then also you think it's like it has almost a calming kind of effect.
I think the music itself transports me to that moment in childhood. So the music is the key because it kind of makes me feel the same feels that I remember feeling when I was however old in oh the nasty ass carpeted living room
Is it a singer?
and
Is it one person,
that's
like a singer
it's
or
a
a band?
group.
Okay.
It's a group.
And that's the trigger. It triggers these memories of childhood. You're a creative person, you're an artist. Did you ever consider a career in music?
Career in music. If I did, it would be to play an instrument.
Which instrument? Or
Well, I wanted to play the clarinet when I was in second grade.
really? And you didn't. Did you have you
Skip.
played any instrument?
My parents had a piano donated to us
Yeah.
when our like by
Did
one of our neighbors, and I played for a very little time, but then we moved homes and we just got rid of it.
did you take lessons or anything? Like can you read sheet music?
No, I mean, oh gosh, this is probably not a great answer, but the extent of my musical ability is Dance Dance Revolution and Guitar Hero and rock
Oh,
and Rock
yeah.
Band.
Do you listen to music when you're either creating with origami or baking, cooking?
Right now, in particular, because of the holidays, I'll probably listen to more festive music. Just
Hmm.
because I am a Christmas fanatic. Cooking, it's all like adrenaline, so anything with bass, anything that's like audible caffeine is what I would like to describe it for myself. And then origami is just, it's like a different kind of happiness that I need to feel and comfort before I can actually be open and ready to create. Otherwise, I'm going to think about the 100 other things I'm going to do. I'm going to procrastinate and not create art and do the other things.
If you already knew what you're going to make, do you have a playlist for that? And then what about coming up with ideas? Are those two separate things, or would that just be the same type of music?
Oh, two separate things. I think I use the music as a way to transport me into particular thinking spaces. Um, and that's really important because if I'm not focused, it's impossible for me to get anything done, unfortunately. But once I'm like focused, I'm I'm locked into like the project's done, or I'll work for like 4 hours straight, then take a break and then go back and work.
What I do sometimes when I'm working is I'll play one song and I'll put that song on a loop for hours. Do you do that, or are you just like you hit shuffle on some playlist and so you're getting a mix?
I have to alternate between a shuffled playlist or lists and background TV series or movies. So
Oh, you have TV shows on in the background as well.
it's usually one or the other, but I think what I do is for TVs or movies, I try to play something that's really long and engaging so that I can work for that entire duration, so that I have to finish that entire series. So it's like I'm tricking myself, but I don't know. I enjoy watching it.
The way you described it, it sounds like there's almost you're giving yourself a deadline. You're saying this episode or whatever is X hours. So I'm going to try to complete this task before this episode ends, or these two episodes or three episodes. Is that right? So you're time
Or
boxing it kind of.
I do try to time box it, but it's more of how do I create the space that is fun and comfortable for me to sit and do the same thing for several hours, 10 hours maybe, you know.
Yeah, so I do the same thing when I read. I have these headphones on and I listen to basically piano instrumental to exactly to what you said. That's kind of my environment is like noise canceling headphones with this music playing,
Hmm.
and that's the only way I can sit down and do something for like a long period of time. Or which city or state do you think of as home?
I think of state,
Yeah,
Minnesota. I think of city, Faribault.
because that's where you grew up, Faribault,
I'm
Minnesota.
born and raised Southern Minnesotan. Yay, Winona Ryder and Rachel Lee Cook and Josh Hartnett.
Bob Dylan and Prince. And
Oh yeah.
is Jessica Biel from Minnesota too?
Oh yeah, I think Jessica Biel is.
Well, where do you live now?
I'm in California. It's
Okay.
wonderful.
And how often do you go back to Minnesota?
I try to at least once a year. I only went back once, but I'm so happy that I chose that one time to go. And that was to show up for my best friend's opening of her first restaurant. And this is something that she's been working really hard for a very long time. And, I'm happy I got to go back to support her. I love that place. I have a lot of history there and a lot of support from the community.
You got your start in both origami and pastry in Minnesota.
Yes, I did.
right?
I
Okay.
did.
So which of those two were you interested in first?
I was interested in origami first. I can remember I was in fourth grade, Mr. Havamaki's class. Teaching assistant was Mrs. O. She had presented a activity for the class on something in relation with, Japan and World War II. We learned about the Hiroshima bombing, and there was like, this children's story about Sadako. And it's about this 12-year-old girl that survived after the bombing but died from all of the radiation. But the story is about how when she was in the hospital, she learned how to make cranes, and it was like her goal to fold 1,000. And it's unsure if she ever did finish that or if her friend from the hospital finished the rest, what she couldn't. But so, anyways, that is the story that inspired me, that, prompted Mrs. O to teach our fourth grade class origami cranes. I just remember holding that piece of paper, and it was craftily cut wrapping paper. And I was just amazed that I could make something. And like, I don't know. A was like just making something, and B, it was so, it was out of nothing. It was out of a piece of paper, something that we see every day, right? I think there's a lot of meaning in it. And so that was what I was introduced to first. And then pastry, just growing up, I watched a lot of Martha Stewart. And then for Minnesota folks, there was a like the Martha Stewart of Minnesota. Her name's Donna of Donna's Day. So I watched a lot of Donna's Day growing up, and I learned how to make my own paint, blah blah blah. But Martha Stewart always had a Christmas special on CBS every year, and I remember she taught us how to make meringue.
How old were
And
you then? Do you remember?
oh, this was at the Division Street home, 4 or 5 maybe.
You remember that TV show from when you were 4 or 5 years old, do you think?
Yeah, because it was so Christmassy and beautiful. Maybe this is why I'm a Christmas fanatic, because
Could be. Uncovering a lot today.
triggers. Oh my
That's right.
gosh. I remember that. And I remember wanting, like, oh, wow, we have the ability to make a like something delicious like that. Like it didn't come from a machine because, I was so young. I remember my mom was like, yeah, it's just egg whites. Just not wrong, but
It sounds like there's a big impact by that realization that these are just regular things that you could turn into something unique or different or delicious, as you said.
almost like turn it into fine works of art, but edible.
Oh, okay. So that's the connection is you like just creating art, it sounds like, and then you've got these two different mediums you would work in,
Hmm.
paper or like, well, because you do mixed media stuff, you work with paints and not just paper, right?
Hmm.
But you've got your mixed media origami stuff, and then you've got pastry. Pretty young, you're at least interested in pastries. You were folding paper for the first time in fourth grade. How did you go from kid doing these things or having interest to doing them professionally? Are there places you can go to learn origami, or is there a college course? Like I have no idea.
So I guess with origami, up until I was 12, 13, I would check out books at the library, come home, fold the models, go back, check out the Macs again, and then I would just go to a different library and like do the same. And then at some point, you're folding the same models and just in a different book.
So you're literally going to the library getting books and then just
That was my only way. Everything was self-taught, which is fine. It's fun. It's like it's like shopping. It's like scavenging, foraging for origami books. And then Yeah, I just didn't really talk about it a lot
Why wouldn't you talk about origami?
growing up, not around a ton of Asians. It was like it was very like noticeable if I had an activity that wasn't what everyone else did per se, and not a lot of people did origami. And I never really got made fun of, but I've gotten told in some form of how certain things that I did were like, oh, it's so Asian. It's something that kind of makes you self-conscious, I guess at the time, it does seem like harmless, and it probably was, but I definitely am self-conscious about certain things. Um, I think more recently, in the last several years, I've grown a lot more comfortable with myself. But yeah, like when you're young and no one else is folding origami, no one else is listening to, oh gosh, we didn't even have like K-pop, J-pop then. It was like Chinese love songs.
That your folks would listen to?
Dude, yeah, or like to soundtracks of the the Kung Fu series that I love watching.
So even though the you felt like you didn't fit in, and so you kept this hobby of yours a secret. What's interesting is that you didn't stop. I mean, you kept going.
I kept going until I was in my early teens, then just didn't really do it as often. I kept the paper. So there's this special origami paper my sister got me when I was super young.
When you were younger, you had this kind of rush. You were learning on your own, going to the library and folding, kind of keeping it a secret. And then you said your sister went to New York, found some origami paper and bought it for you, and then what? Brought it back, gave it to you.
Her round of paper was like the last round of origami paper I folded.
Oh, got it. Okay, so you
Yeah.
you got that paper, you folded it, and then you stopped doing origami for a while. So how long did you stop doing origami for, roughly? Was it like 10 years, 5 years,
Yeah, like 10
10?
years, 12.
How did you get your start in pastry, in cooking? Like you knew you had an interest in it at an early age. At what point did it have to like come out? Did you like I got to try this. I got to do this.
I started cooking and experimenting in my teenage years for, I would bake for special occasions for like boyfriends at that time. I actually went to the University of Minnesota right out of high school for interior design.
You knew you had an interest in origami, and then before you started the U of M, you knew you had an interest in cooking.
Hmm.
So then how did interior design, where did that idea come from?
That is the compromise between doctor and lawyer.
Oh, the pressure, the family pressure to make money.
Hey, no, just kidding. I want to be a WWE wrestler, then I want to be a magician.
So,
All real stories, by the way.
okay, so you were what, you were feeling pressure to do like a what, like a more conventional job, I guess, if you're interior designer instead of what, cooking and making origami?
I didn't feel pressure. It was just annoying, and it wasn't fun not even having. I feel like the conversation of what I would genuinely like to do and what does going to college to get a degree mean? Like, what do I
Yeah.
want out of my future? Like, I didn't have any of these really serious conversations at all with anybody. So, oh my gosh, 18-year-old me just navigating through life. Just knew inside that I didn't want to do it, but
Didn't want,
I did.
are we talking about interior design?
I think like the idea of college, I didn't understand why everyone was so stressed out about me having to get into university. And the way I see it, and I think the reason why I'm so calm and I don't know, didn't really bother me a ton, especially when I dropped out after the first semester. Like, do you really want to be stuck doing something you don't want to do every day? Do you really want to wake up every day knowing that you're gonna do something that you hate? Like, that is defeat. That is like the rest of your life defeated, is how I felt. And I don't know, at least I tried.
So you felt the pressure not necessarily for a particular career, but you felt like everybody else was going to college. I should go to college and get a degree. And you picked interior design.
hmm I mean, I like decorating. I like spaces.
You just said you got there, you knew it was going to be a problem, so you didn't waste any more time. You just got out of there. You just decided,
Yeah,
this isn't for me. I'm out.
yeah, yeah. There's not a ton of emotional turmoil about that. Everyone else probably didn't take it so well, but afterwards, I had a reality check. I worked for like 6 months at the mall. Then I just knew I had to go back to school. I was able to apply. Well, I got accepted into two colleges, and I looked up both of them. Look around Blue and Aveda for hair and beauty.
All right. Well, let me go back to University of Minnesota, interior design. You knew this wasn't for me. You weren't going to like it, so you drop out. When you made that decision, you said, I can't take this anymore. I have to get out of here. I have to make that change. Did you have any idea what your next thing was going to be? Or did you just like, I can't even,
Oh, hell
like
no.
hair? And that's why you dropped out and you're like, pivot to those things.
Mm-mm.
So you're just
I
like, I'm
just,
out with no real plan in place,
yeah, it
right?
was
Yeah.
better to have no plan than to do something I felt icky doing.
You just had this, let's just say it was a negative experience of college. Why did you think it would be different going to Le Cordon Bleu?
I was gonna learn how to make beautiful French pastries, like the stuff that Martha Stewart made.
So you wanted to be like Martha Stewart.
I still want to be like Martha Stewart. She's so gangster.
God. Okay. So finally, you've decided that I'm going to follow this path professionally of one of the
Mhm.
two kind of creative outlets you had as a kid, right? Origami and pastry. So this is the first time you're, or I guess that's a question. Is is this the first time you took a step towards doing one of those things professionally? Like, were you selling any origami at this point, or was that like you weren't doing that at all at this point? It's now
No,
it's just okay.
it was just kind of getting off my feet after getting out of school. I didn't get a pastry job right away. I wanted to take like a little bit of time after my internship. So pretty much I did the pastry program and then I did a 6 week internship at uh, the best restaurant in the city at the time, La Belle Vie,
Minneapolis, city
yeah,
of
in
Minneapolis.
Minneapolis,
Yeah,
city of Minneapolis, yeah.
and it's called what?
And La Belle Vie, old school, but classic. Um, what a beautiful memory. And I had a great teacher, and her name is Diane Moore, and she's my best friend. So yeah, I don't know, my whole experience back home with cooking is so unique. But I I don't know, I loved everything that I made and did, even though it was a very demanding and rigorous field. Um, but it's very fulfilling. I mean, like the lit if I had to give you an analogy that was a literal translation of the satisfaction I get, of being stressed and overworked and screamed at to make beautiful, dainty desserts. It's like imagine a drill sergeant yelling at you to run a mile as fast as you can, but you have to do that once an hour. It's like, oh my God, again.
It sounds like you are describing what I've heard about kitchens where it's a lot of like panic and anxiety and yelling and screaming. I'm thinking of Gordon Ramsay just screaming at people, trying to motivate them to either do something better or work faster. Is that accurate? Is that a true depiction of the environment?
There are probably some chefs and some cooks that do scream and yell like that. The people that I have been around in my network all work pretty well professionally. So if there are any or have been any discrepancies like that, I haven't been around it, So it's not like it's an uncommon thing because in finer kitchens, not only do you show like respect to the way that you treat your food and ingredients, but it's it's your lifestyle. It's the way that you treat your station. It's keeping your white chef coat white and not dirty. It's keeping your apron clean, keeping, it's like down to the minimal detail.
So you finished Le Cordon Bleu.
Mhm.
You got this internship with Diane at this amazing, well-known, well-respected restaurant in Minneapolis as an intern. Is that how it
It's
started?
it's labeled as an externship,
Externship.
as
Okay.
what the school called it. But yeah, it's pretty much an internship. I just work for free for 6 weeks to
Six
get
weeks. Okay.
to get experience or however long, the school needs for that for my pastry program it was only 6 weeks.
6 weeks. Okay. So what happened at the end of the 6 weeks? Because then are you technically done with school and then you can go find a job? Is that
I
what happens?
am done with school
Yeah.
because I'm passing grades, all that stuff. um Level B just didn't have the space, so they weren't able to hire, but
Yeah.
that's okay. I mean, Diane reached out shortly after with an opportunity, but I wasn't ready at that time, actually, said no, and I took a little, I know, right? Now that I'm thinking
I
about it.
didn't know that.
Oh, does sister?
I don't think so, or I don't remember it. But yeah, I thought you started working with her like immediately after that internship.
No,
Oh
my
no.
first
Okay.
pastry gig was at the Dakota Jazz Club, where Prince used to
Oh,
frequent.
yeah.
Yeah, got to serve him. Well, I got to like plate dessert and someone served it to him. Yeah, that was like cool. I was, 20, 21. It's
Yeah.
exciting. Yeah.
And that was the start of your cooking career. That was your first job in the industry.
hmm
And that was how long ago, roughly? 10, 12 years ago?
2010.
2010. Okay. And during that time, what's happening with origami for you? Because now it looks like your trajectory is into cooking. So where is origami as a priority for you during that time?
Non-existent.
Not doing anything?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
All my focus was in cooking, working on my skills, working with the cooks, just
Yeah.
making sure that I could keep up because
Into your career, you're more focused now on cooking, and that's cool. You're good with this trajectory now. You are in a on a path that you think you're going to enjoy or that you
hmm
do enjoy, right? Instead of like the interior design thing. So a creative, artistic outlet for you is pastry, and
hmm
you're getting paid to do it. Seems pretty good. Did that hit you in any way? Were you like, oh my god, I'm doing what I want to be doing, and it doesn't feel like work, and or
no,
was it?
because I was still just collecting skills. I didn't have my dream job, and it's not like it's a dream job, but it's like a checklist of goals that I wanted to achieve out of school.
So you knew right away that you had to spend X amount of time, maybe it's years or whatever, to accumulate experience and skill. And then you're saying once you did that, then what happens? Then you thought, then I would have my dream job because you would be doing what? Like opening your own pastry, uh, whatever bakery, or what? What's the dream job that you had in mind?
I wish I thought that far in advance. It was just more of my focus was who's the best, what are their techniques, learning who, you know, the new chefs were, who, what restaurants were opening, what flavors. Like I was still training my palate, um, building my confidence as a cook. Um, these are very interesting but psychological habits and behaviors that can only be, I think, mean that can only be calloused like in the kitchen. I want to say that can only be built in the kitchen, and that's fine. But it I didn't care. I guess I wasn't concerned about which direction I was going to go as long as I was learning from the people and the places that I thought was valuable to me. So like the style of pastry I want to do.
Yeah, so you specifically identified certain people in the industry who you, let's just say, looked up to. Maybe they were doing a certain type of food or they had certain skills that you wanted to learn.
Hmm.
And so you put your focus on those people and you tried to work with those people. Is that right?
Hmm.
So you're very
Hmm.
tactical.
Well, I feel like doesn't that make sense?
Yeah, it
To get
does. It
to
does.
get X, do Y and Z.
But what I think is,
All right, the equation is X plus Y equals Z.
well, I didn't know this about you that you were so tactical and so focused on acquiring skill. Like you knew it was going to take a certain amount of time. You knew you should do it, or you at least you were trying to do it from the people who you thought were the best and you had access to at the time. And so yeah, it makes perfect sense. I mean, learn from the best if you can. Yeah, I mean, so you're kind of creating there's a Robert Greene, the author, has a book called Mastery, and he literally defines what you just described as kind of a self-imposed apprenticeship. You're
Hmm.
doing it kind of self-directed because you're picking different mentors and you're learning from them and you're kind of going around and you're accumulating all this knowledge for yourself.
Hmm.
So that's what I see. I didn't know you were so specific and intentional about it.
Hmm. I mean, if I'm okay, if I'm going back to school after dropping out of the university, I better make it worth it. And oh my gosh, like having my parents, not that like it really bothers me because as you can tell, I have like my own opinion.
Yeah.
But it's just like for my parents to understand that you don't tell my aunts and uncles I make donuts for a living, you know?
That's how that was the description. What does Jay do for a living? She makes donuts. That
Because like
was
when
the
I think of fine pastry or desserts, they think of, and this is also just what they know, like the
yeah,
grocery store dessert section, the bakery section, or the
yeah,
small bakery like in Faribault that closed down that I love so much. But
right. Well,
um,
well, you've
that's
worked
what they know.
in essentially the places you've worked have been more of fine dining. Is that
Hmm.
the right word I should use? Is that how you would describe it? I mean, it's
Hmm.
a different level from grocery store pastry, right? I think is what the point.
Not choking you with my eyeballs, dude.
Yeah, it's on another
uh,
level.
Yeah. But I mean, I worked at one bakery and that was amazing. I was very lucky.
Yeah,
Patisserie 46, so also
right.
Minneapolis. Yeah.
That's right.
Best.
You worked there for a while.
Just about a year, I think.
So you've done all this pastry stuff, you're learning from all these people. What point or where does origami enter the picture again for you?
It's probably like 5 years into cooking. It's getting good, getting comfortable.
Hmm.
Also part
Still
of the
still learning from library books?
almost.
Yeah?
So I'm at this point where I guess I could say that it was easy to go out a little bit more than normal, just with the culture, cooking, having a couple drinks after work. I wanted to have an activity that helped me enjoy staying at home. Like didn't want to be at home, but like flip through the TV channels and go, oh, this sucks. I wish I could be. I think a part of changing habits is changing the way that, like reframing your thinking where it starts. So where it starts is you need to want to be home. You need to want to be happy when you're at home. So I try to do things that I could only do at home that made me happy. So what? Folding origami. That's pretty secretive.
But it makes sense because it's a creative, artistic outlet
Mhm.
that you like to do when you after you what came home from working in a restaurant, you're exhausted from being yelled at and uh, plating so many things and doing so much work. You come home, you need something calming and still creative.
That's like, I mean, example. I love making caramel. Also, very scary. And it's like, wow, you're just boiling sugar. But it's the satisfaction of boiling the sugar and not having it crystallize without having to use like hacks.
Yeah.
So when I don't use a hack and the sugar crystallizes,
So there's a feeling of accomplishment,
yes, very
right?
much so. Yeah. Because it humbles you. Oh man, if it's anything, sugar will humble you when you forget it.
Let me try to recap here. So you're learning from all these different chefs and pastry folks, accumulating knowledge. You do that for like 5 years, and then while you're doing that, origami comes back into your life, and you start kind of doing that as your after work, after you come home from the restaurant or the bakery, you're doing origami. And then to right now, well, let's see, in that time you started selling origami. It became like a career or a job or something you actually can sell and, a source of income for you. So where did or maybe the better question right now is like where are you right now? What is your priority? Are you doing both? And to like is it 50-50? Is it 60-40? Is it 90-10? Like where are you at the moment with both of those creative pursuits?
Oh man, I was asking myself that same thing. What a coincidence. Okay, I guess um it's December, end of year, 2024. It is 2024 is my 10th year as an origami artist. 2014 was the first time I did an art show. Pretty awesome. So this is already a decade. That's terrifying. But amazing. I feel so good. And then I also have 15 years of pastry experience. And more recently, I did spend some time doing extracurricular learning. I have a certificate in full stack web development and UX UI design. Did a couple of internships and worked at a big corporate job, and I thought that was the dream. That was earlier this year. I got big girl corporate job, got a new corporate wardrobe, blah 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 blah.
But at some point you decided you don't want to pursue that anymore, right? And now your focus is what, solely on pastry and origami? Have you
Honestly,
decided like it's just these two for me now? Like I'm not going to try anything else.
I'm going to focus on pastry and origami.
Mhm.
I'm going to prioritize that. I have a lot of fun with UX and UI tools. I'll
Yeah.
probably still play around with that.
Yeah.
But quite honestly, I don't want to choose a medium. I don't, I feel like that's what I've been struggling to do, especially the last 10 years, is origami and everything else that's going to pay my bills. But I love it so much that I certainly didn't give up. And I've been fortunate with the last several years of, projects. But now I want to keep growing. And I love food, even though I wasn't cooking professionally for a long time. I I still very much care about it. It's an art form. It's a lifestyle. Like these people live and breathe it and grind, and I keep up with what's new, the new places back home.
You've everything you've described that would be a potential career is all I would file under creative, maybe art, maybe design, right? Because you talked about interior design,
Hmm.
fine art, pastry, origami, UX and UI. Like there's a theme here for you, and it's all, if you just want to like highest level word, it's all like creative work. It's not
Hmm.
it's not accounting, it's not whatever, right? So you're very much
Hmm.
a creative person. I think the way you said it was the best way to say it, is you just have this creativity and you can pick, and you've tried these different mediums and now you're still experimenting with who knows what the next one will be.
Yeah, I think I want to move forward in a way where I kind of break the glass ceiling. That's my theme for myself. I feel like that's how I've also been able to continue on all these cool origami things. Because funny enough, since I was maybe 26, 27, maybe right before I moved to Alaska, every year I told myself this is the last year I'm doing origami and I'm quitting. And every year, a bigger and better project. Every time, it's like too good to say no to. Yeah. So now it's like, I just I don't even think about that thought anymore. Yeah.
It sounds like you've committed to keeping that around and to continue doing it.
Well, I mean, if it's something about what I've noticed is that when people hear my story, they're like, "Oh, you kind of been all over the place." And I was like, "Yeah, but it's honestly like I've spent a lot of time all over the place, if anything, nurturing these skill sets, right?" That's how I feel.
So Jade, thank you for doing this interview with me. I learned a lot. And now it's your turn. What is the next big thing that you're working on?
Well, right now, I'm actually in the top three for a pastry competition. Um, it's hosted by Buddy Valastro and Colossal Impact. It's called The Greatest Baker. This year is the 2024 version, and right now I am fighting for a spot, well, to be the top in my group out of three to advance into the next round. So that is my current endeavor, and I'm hoping that if I can win this competition, not only will I donate 25% of my winnings to the community in Little Tokyo, to further enrich their community because I hope to learn from them and bring some more, I guess, specialties to my work.
And where can people vote if they want to vote for you?
We have the link. It's at greatestbaker.com.
Jade, if people want to know more about you, they want to follow you on social media, where can they find you?
They can find me on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook. Those would be the best ways.
Awesome. I will make sure to put the links to the voting and all of your social medias in the video description. So go down there, check it out, follow Jade, vote for her, and thank you for watching.